Welcome to Chapter 1, Section 7. This is on simplifying expressions. Remember, simplifying means there's no equal sign in the problem. It gives you a bunch of numbers and occasionally letters, and it asks you to combine the numbers as much as you can with like terms. When we're combining numbers, we need to be reminded of the properties. You know, the ones where you remember exactly how they work, but you never remember which one's called what. First one we have is the commutative property, and this word is like the word commute. Like you commute to and from school every day. This means you can move stuff around. You can add and multiply numbers in any order. So if you add 2 plus 7, you can switch them and move them around and say 7 plus 2, it's the same thing. Multiplication works the same way. Then we have the associative property. Who do you associate with? This is about grouping symbols. You can change groups and you can regroup things when adding or multiplying. And here we have the example that if everything is addition and I've got my 3 plus 2 grouped and I don't want to group my 3 plus 2, I can move that grouping to the 2 plus 4 and it'll still be the same. If they're all multiplying, you can do the same thing. However, if it's not all adding or all multiplying, you can't do it. And they give you two examples on the bottom of page 46. The first one is 4 times 9 times 25. And what they want you to understand is that you can switch those around so that you can group these together, because 4 times 25 is a lot easier to do than 9 times 25. You can do this one in your head. And suddenly this becomes a much easier problem. Yeah, you can do 9 times 25 in your head, but that's a little more figuring, and then you got to multiply that number by 4, and that can be tricky. So this can be really useful, especially if you're stuck doing math in your head. So have a look at the other example. It's on addition. It's the same idea. Check it out, number 1, and pause your video and come back in a sec. Check it out. Number 1 has 15 1/3 plus 4 plus 1 2/3. Now, 15 1/3 is the same as 15 plus 1/3. So I can actually separate the 15 and the 1/3 apart. I can put all of the whole numbers together and all the fractions together, and I can add these separately because this equals 1. And 15 plus 4 plus 1 is 20, and suddenly this becomes a much easier problem. 1b, I see these numbers and I notice that 410 plus 90 is easy to add, and 58 plus 2 is easy to add. So when I group these two, I get 500, and these two I get 60, and that number, that addition, I can do in my head. Then we have 1/2 times 7 times 8. It's easier for me to do 1/2 times 8, so I'm going to switch these two around, because 1/2 times 8 is 4, and 4 times 7 is 28, where otherwise I'd have to do 3.5 times 7 in my head, and that's a little more difficult. We want to make math as easy as possible. Next up, we have the distributive property, and this states that you can multiply a number by addends and then add. And the sample that they give you is that when you have 3 times the quantity 4 plus 8, you can do 3 times 4 and then 3 times 8 and add. And I don't know why they introduce it like this, because this, to me, makes it more difficult. This isn't helpful until you get a quantity that you can't just add together, like 5 plus x. If you don't know what x equals, then the distributive property is actually helpful, because it gives you 3 times 5 plus 3 times x. You can't combine these, so this is actually your final answer. We're going to do this later, but this is why you have to learn this. So the sample for this that they give is actually reasonably good for mental math. If you have to do 15 times 103, you can actually break this up into 15 times 100 plus 15 times 3. Both of these you can do in your head, and you end up with 1500 plus 45. So the sample problems that you have are a lot like this. There's even one subtraction problem. Follow that along and go ahead and do the 3 check it out problems on the bottom of page 47. Pause and come back. Number 2, 9 times 52 is the same as 9 times 50 plus 9 times 2, which is 450 plus 18, which is 468. 2b, 12 times 98 is the same as 12 times 100 minus 12 times 2, which is 1200 minus 24, which is 1176. And I have no idea why they bother breaking that up, but your answer is 238. If you have any questions, please ask. And next we have additional vocabulary. I want to make sure you understand that the terms are the parts of a number sentence to be added or subtracted. And like terms are terms that contain the same variables. For example, in the problem 4x minus 3x plus 2, 4x and 3x are like terms because they have the same variable. 2 is not a like term with these. So these two can be combined. 4x minus 3x is 1x, or just x, plus 2. And this is as simple as you can make it. Coefficient is the number multiplied to the variable. This 4 is a coefficient of x. This 3 is a coefficient of x. This 1 is an unnecessary coefficient of x. And remember, because this does not have a variable, this is called a constant, because no matter what you do, 2 always equals 2. Next thing they ask you to do is combine like terms. 12x plus 30x, because they both have an x, you can combine these, and this is just addition. You're adding the coefficients. 30 plus 12 is 42x. 6.8y squared minus y squared, this is actually 1y squared. They leave off this 1 because look, there's only 1y squared here. They don't have to tell you how many there are because there's just 1 there. So you're essentially doing 6.8 minus 1, which is 5.8y squareds. Here you have 4n plus 11n squared. Please notice that n and n squared are not the same coefficient, which means they cannot be combined, which means this is the answer. This is as simple as this gets. The next thing they ask you to do is recognize, as you're combining like terms, the distributive property. So here, what they're asking you to do is distribute this multiply 2 to both terms. So here we're going to do 2 times x is 2x plus, and 2 times 6 is 12. And then we get back to the plus 3x. So you've distributed this 2. Now you're going to combine like terms. 2x and 3x, because these are all pluses, 2x and 3x are 5x plus 12. Now, and also understand, if this is 2x minus 12 plus 3x, you could still combine 2x and 3x to be 5x, and now it would be minus 12. Because this is essentially adding a negative number. Those are both the same. If you had 2x minus 12 minus 3x, you can still combine 2x and negative 3x. Let me get a different color. The 2x and the negative 3x become negative 1x or negative x, and then you bring down your minus 12. And again, because this 12 doesn't have an x, I can't combine it. But this is combining like terms. Please do check it out, numbers 3 and 4. Pause the video and come back. With number 3, we're just combining like terms. 16p plus 84p combines to make 100p's total. Negative 20t minus 8.5t, the signs are the same, so we add, we get a bigger negative here, negative 28.5t. 3m squared plus m cubed, these are not the same coefficients, which means this is as simple as this gets. Then we have number 4. And here they ask you to simplify and distribute. So we're going to distribute this 6 to the x and to the minus 4. So we have 6x minus 24 plus 9. And then we're going to combine our like terms, and these two are our like terms. Negative 24 and a positive 9 gives us a negative 15. So this is our simplified term. The next problem, negative 12x minus 5x plus 3a plus x. I'm going to combine these two. Two negatives give me a bigger negative, 17x plus 3a plus x. I want to combine this x with this negative 17x. That gives me negative 16x plus 3a. Your homework tonight is page 49, numbers 1 through 25, plus number 57. See you tomorrow.